Women who've done time. What was women's prison like? Story 1. I got locked up in a women's prison when I was 21. When you first get there, they ask if you're into anything. If you said benzos or booze, they dosed you up with some bad stuff every day. Anyone who's been there before knows this. For the first 2 weeks when I was in the treatment area, for other things, I didn't know about the whole prison thing, it was very chill. There were a few verbal fights, but kind of a camaraderie between the women, like, we're all just trying to get through this together. We had groups, and it was a daily thing for all the women with children to break down crying about missing them and how they'd literally do anything for their kids now that they're sober. You were in a trailer with 2 floors. There were rooms with 4 bunks in them and a community bathroom with individual showers. Lots of stuff going on in the bathroom stalls and showers. Something really weird was that every few days they passed out electric shavers. There was one for each bunk, and there would be a line of girls using these old shavers in the bathroom. Some of them would flip them and use the non-cutting side as a toy. Super gross. Never even considered shaving. There was a microwave you could sometimes use and access to hot water to make noodles and coffee. They gave out stamps, paper, and pens to write home if you asked and gave you pads, 1 roll of toilet paper, ghetto shampoo or soap, and toothbrush and toothpaste. During rec time, you could walk around the compound, but there were also classes like yoga, AA, Zumba, gym, library, etc. After 2 weeks there, I got moved to the maximum security part. Here, you were in a high-tech building with 1 bunk in each room and locked in for most of the day, where you could go in the community room and watch TV a few hours a day. No more access to hot water. Women who didn't pay a fine were locked up with worse criminals. They were the most shunned. One of them got hurt because she asked for my oatmeal I wasn't eating. No more classes of any kind. You had to be there for over 5 years to be put in the trailers where the program was. They even had dogs and could go to the library and pick out books instead of just picking from books left behind. I saw a girl almost bite the dust after throwing a fit. Lots of fights. It really was awful. The shaving thing, I don't doubt this is true, but that's weird as heck. Like, it's okay, ladies. Just because you're in prison doesn't mean you can't have silky smooth legs. How's shaving your legs a priority in that situation? Story 2. I'm not a woman, and I haven't done time, but my mom did. It was before I was born, and though I never knew why she got locked up because she would never tell me, I think it had something to do with soliciting or breaking and entering. Though she was still naturally beautiful, the prison had done a lot of damage to her physically. She would tell me how some of the bigger women in prison would try to take advantage of her, but how, in her own words, and I love this about her, she would take the hits of her life before she would let them do that to her. She was only a small woman, not much over 5'2", and was pretty skinny, but she had the heart of a giant. So I'm sure she would make it hell for anyone trying to take advantage of her like that. She passed away from a driving accident when I was 16. She was an alcoholic, and though she defeated a lot in her life, alcohol was something she couldn't. So the women's prison sounded like a rough place coming from her. I really miss her, and I wish I could have asked her more about it and the rest of her life before she had me. But no matter what, though she was a bit of an outcast to society, she was and will always be my hero. Love you, Mom. Story 3. I taught GED prep at a county house of correction for about 6 years, and about halfway through started splitting time between the men's and women's units. I agree with other posters that the drama was always at about a 6, mostly about who was writing letters to whose man on the out. It made me sad how these women were so convinced that they needed a man to take care of them and would do anything to keep one, even though it was usually their boyfriend who got them into this mess in the first place. I really never got hit on, but the first time I was up there, I tutored 3 women for about an hour, and as we were leaving the classroom, one of them thanked me for working with him. Another lady said, "Close the door a minute. I'll thank you." But it was just a laugh. I did hear some stories about the night shift, but who knows. I left kind of abruptly. A high school called and offered me a job pretty much the next day, as high schools tend to do, but I negotiated a week to transition. When I announced to my female students I was leaving, one of them just burst into tears. All in all, the women and men were just different. The men more jokey and the women more serious, interested in kids and family and such. The women tended to do shorter bids and crash back more quickly. I would see the same guy maybe twice in 6 years and the same woman 3 or 4 times. Story 4. Probably late to the party, but the best way I can describe it is like a boarding school full of every type of female you can imagine. I spent about 2 months at a facility with around 400 women, whose charges ranged from small petty crimes to life sentences. Everyone had their own cliches that they kept too, but there was a lot of stupid drama. Try to think of the most troubled girls from high school, and then imagine 400 of them stuck together in a place that is miserable, where they're isolated from their family and the rest of society. That's basically the gist of it. But like any community, there are good people and bad people, and most of the time you can find a like-minded individual to make friends with. The facility I was at had a huge library, pretty good food, and cable TV, so I considered myself lucky in that aspect. I mostly kept to myself and read a lot, and I never got into any fights and stayed out of trouble for the most part. Contraband still got in, a lot. That always made things interesting. I met some really strange people and saw women who committed unspeakable crimes. It opened my eyes to a lot of things I'd never seen before. Overall, though, my time wasn't as bad as it could have been, and I learned some things, and hopefully I will never go back. It's pretty ironic how illegal substances still make it into places where people are punished for using them. Let's be honest, does your room look dull as shit? Yeah, well, most do. Luckily, I just launched Rufus Rugs, custom hand-tufted rugs, and no, this isn't some BS dropshipping company. We have a warehouse in Canada where me and my friends hand-tuft every single rug. So if you're looking to bring your room to life with some awesome anime rugs, or literally anything you can think of, we can get it done for you. From Rick and Morty to The Last Airbender, we've got you covered. Hit the link in the description to get a free quote. Story 5. I was in jail for nonviolent offenders, not prison. It wasn't so bad, honestly. Each sleeping area had 3 bunk beds, 6 lockers, and a payphone. No doors. We got up at 6 a.m. and lined up for breakfast. Each room had to stay together. Technically, order didn't matter, but the women who had been there a while liked to make sure everyone was always in the same spot. Probably helped them feel like they had some sort of control, I guess. Food was served in your basic cafeteria trays. Drinks were in these red plastic cups that reminded me of a toddler's learning cup. Things were pretty quiet for the most part. You weren't supposed to share food, but the guards were pretty lax. Most of the day was free time. There was a big living room type area with couches, chairs, and bookshelves. The book selection was horrendous, but most of them didn't bother to read. Outside time was pretty typical of what you'd see on TV. Just a concrete ground with a few basketball hoops. At night, they alternated between movies and church. The movies were regular mainstream movies. The bunkmate yelled at me on my first morning because I put my glasses in her locker. The top of her locker was right next to my bed, almost like an end table for me, so I thought it'd be okay. But it was not. She wasn't angry, but she was severe enough that I slept with my glasses on from then on out. We were allowed to wear casual clothes, but for some reason, I can't for the life of me remember why, I couldn't wear mine. So one girl let me borrow her nice pair of orange prison pants. She told me to be careful with them because they were the pair she reserved for wearing to court. One woman was always reading her horoscope, but a lot of the time she didn't understand what certain words meant or didn't know how to pronounce them. Overall, it was pretty laid back and chill. But thinking of the women in there always depresses me. Story 6. I had an ex and a good friend who were both locked up at different times but in the same state. They both pretty much reported the same stuff. A lot of illegal substances, people offering them prescription pills immediately upon entry, a dearth of good books, and a-hole guards. The ex didn't get undergarments for the first week she was there for literally no reason other than someone forgot to give her them at some point and they didn't want to admit to it. The friend is a strict vegan for her whole life and they wouldn't give her veggie meals. Even though they're supposed to, she ended up having to eat only bread and apples the entire time she was there. Lost a ton of weight and still has digestive problems to this day. Mind you, both of these women were model prisoners. Scared white girls from middle-class families that made straight A's in school. Both went in for illegal substance dependence issues. They still got treated like trash. I can only imagine what it must be like for the troublemakers. Story 7. My mom went to prison when I was a junior in high school. She was innocent, the other people had more money, and our lawyer was complete garbage. Long story short, she was in there for about 1.5 years. There are a lot of girls who either are or while in there tend to be lesbian. They're literally frisky all the time. I remember being young and visiting my mom, and a few of the younger inmates had looked over at me a couple of times and had given that look. Another thing is cleanliness. A lot of things get missed. Inmates pretty much do most of the work around the prison, and my mom knew some people in the kitchen. They had been cleaning one day and figured they would open up the meat grinder because it hadn't been cleaned for a while. As they opened it, they found about 1 million bugs inside it. Basically, it hadn't been cleaned a lot longer than people thought. Just a bit of extra protein, I guess. No harm, no foul. If you don't want that stuff in your dinner table tonight, make sure to leave a like in this video and subscribe to the channel. Story 8. Back in 2014, I spent 36 days in the county jail on a contempt charge. I, unfortunately, had jumped aboard the snow bandwagon that had been riding around my town, which led to my brief stay at the county inn. When I first arrived, I was led to a large room lined with cells and an elevated platform with a half wall surrounding it taking up the center of the room. This is where the correctional officer sat to monitor the area and watch the security cameras. In these cells were people who were only going to be there overnight, had medical ailments, or were in protective custody, meaning they were separated from everyone else for their safety or the safety of others. There were also 2 cells that contained nothing but a hole in the floor to take a dump in. That is where inmates who threatened to harm themselves were placed, wearing nothing but what was referred to as the turtle suit. It was a large green padded vest that resembled a turtle shell when you wore it. In this room, I was processed and booked. They asked me a dozen or so questions about who I was and why I was there. One question was if I was going to be experiencing any sort of withdrawal, which I stupidly admitted to, thinking that they would help me in some way. Boy, was I wrong. After being booked, I was given an orange jumpsuit that was made out of rough canvas material and a pair of worn-down orange Crocs that were about 3 sizes too big for me. I told them I wore a size 9. I guess I should have specified that it was a woman's size 9. I was led to a bathroom and was told to get in my undergarments and wait. After standing there for a while, a metal door about 3 feet by 3 feet opened to reveal an older woman. She kind of looked me up and down and asked if I knew I was coming there today. I replied that I didn't. She explained that she could tell I didn't based on my undergarments. Pretty much the only undergarments acceptable had to be white and cotton and no underwire bras. Thankfully, this lady was kind and allowed me to keep my purple lace underwear and dug through some old whites that previous inmates had left and found me a t-shirt that was about a size too small and stained with sweat. After that, I handed my street clothes and shoes over and they were placed in a bin with the rest of my belongings that I was arrested with. In return, I was given a plastic tote with a rolled-up 3-inch thick foam mattress, a thin brown microfiber blanket, a fitted sheet so worn down and thin that it was pretty much just a large Kleenex, a roll of toilet paper, a small styrofoam cup, and a small toothbrush, and a small hotel-sized bar of soap. I was led down a maze of hallways to one of the 2 cell blocks in the jail. The cell block was pretty much how I described it. It was shaped like an octagon with 8 cell pods surrounding a central unit where the CO sat monitoring the pods through the huge 2-way mirrors that separated the pods and the guard area. Once in the pod, you do not leave unless you have court, a meeting with your lawyer, GED class, or church. Each pod was in a trapezoid-type shape with the longest side lined with 8 cells with 2 bunks and 2 cells with 4 bunks, which were divided into 2 levels. 5 cells on the ground floor and 5 cells upstairs with a walkway with rails. One of the shorter walls of the pod had 3 open showers built into it with a shower curtain so revealing you might as well just leave it open so you didn't have to hang it back up half a dozen times while you were showering. Along with the showers was a toilet that literally no one used unless it was an emergency, and you couldn't hold it until your cell was opened. In the center of the pod were 3 long steel tables bolted to the cement ground with about 10 little uncomfortable round stools attached to the table. On a metal shelf about 10 feet up was a small 19-inch TV with about 5 of the basic cable channels for our viewing pleasure. That TV was the source of so many fights in our pod that it probably was only ever on for about 2 hours total in a day. Aside from the door that led out to the guard area, there was one door that led to the pod next to us and a door that led to a rec room next to our pod. The rec room consisted of a device that you could do pull-ups and sit-ups on, and that was it. Even if you wanted to use it, you couldn't because it was broken and had been for years. In each cell were a set of bunk beds, which were like large metal shelves, a steel toilet and sink, and a small desk-type setup that was pretty much 2 steel squares that came out of the wall that was about 18 square inches. Obviously, in the 4-man cells, everything was doubled, except there was only 1 toilet, but definitely more than twice the square footage, which was very nice. I feel like I've written a damn book at this point about what the physical jail itself was like and almost nothing about my experience. So I will try my best to wrap this up since it's 2 a.m. My experience there was very eye-opening and scary for me as far as it goes. At this point, I had only been using for less than a year, so I fortunately had not gotten too deep into it yet. I would say about 4 out of every 5 women who came through the pod were already withdrawing from it or were about to. The scary part of being there for me was with each woman I talked to about what I was going through, it was like I was looking at my future if I didn't get my head out of my rear. From stealing to shoplifting to never seeing their kids and the stories of everything terrible and messed up they did to get their fix. The first week I was there was absolute hell going through withdrawal. The only way to get Tylenol or anything to relieve the pain was through commissary, which could only be ordered on Sundays and would be delivered on the following Saturday. However, the one good thing about everyone there being a is that they were all more than willing to comfort you in almost any way they could while you were sick. For the first 2 weeks I was there, I was in a 2-person cell on the first floor with this middle-aged woman who just cried and cried about how much she missed her boyfriend and how she shouldn't be there. She was serving 21 days for her 9th time being caught driving without a license. Luckily, after that, I was sent to the top level into the 4-person cell, which at first sounded miserable, but it was actually quite nice. A lot more space, more interaction. My bunkmates were cool, and we all had the state of mind to try to make the best out of a bad situation, which really pissed some people off. I have to stop now. I can barely keep my eyes open as I type this, and I know this has no flow to it. For anyone wondering, I've been clean since my arrest. Jail sucks. Try to avoid it. Story 9. I worked in a women's prison for a year. I caught more misconduct there than I did in the 26 years I worked at a men's prison. As far as toys, the women inmates made them out of Jolly Ranchers, which were bought at the canteen. They would melt them using the microwave oven and shape them into their desired shapes, even with the realistic details. We called them swirlies because they were made in different colors. They also made something called speedballs. These were made of freeze-dried coffee with just enough water to make them into a paste, which was rolled into a ball and then played with. It gave them a rush of caffeine that was the equivalent of a hit. I don't want to imagine the chaos a sugar toy would cause in a prison. Story 10. I spent 2 months in a county jail, a couple of times in different jails. I was very dumb in my early 20s. Among the charges I was jailed for was a failure to appear in court for driving an unregistered vehicle. Long story. Shoplifting from Claire's, contempt of court for not paying fines for my possession of grass pipe charge. That was the longest stay at 59 days. Really, the only way I could describe it was like living in a girls-only low-income area middle school. I personally found a few other white girls who were semi-normal and in there for minor things like DUI and underage drinking. And one girl was super naive and was talked into writing out a check to herself from her roommate's checkbook to pay bills. She was 19 and had never done any sort of vices. She was a sweetheart and told me everything there is to know about Johnny Depp. My first week or so there was rough. I was rooming with some pretty mean ghetto black chicks. I am a 5', around 100-pound little white girl. One girl stole my Butterfinger I bought with a tiny amount of commissary I had. So I confronted her and she tried to fight me. Even though I clearly saw the wrapper in her bunk, she denied taking it. Anyway, I told the guard I didn't feel safe in that room, so she moved me in with a 19-year-old. We actually ended up having a lot of fun. It was like a sleepover every night. Then some crazy moved in with us too. She was out of her mind, but entertaining nevertheless. I mostly just read lots of books, 28 total, and hung out with a few people I found to be normal there. I still talk to a few of them actually. It's definitely not a place I ever want to go again, but I'm glad I was able to find a few like-minded people and get through it. The worst part was the gap of time between dinner and breakfast. When you don't have money for commissary, it's tough watching everyone else eat their snacks. But my friends always shared with me. Another time I went to jail for 2 weeks for the shoplifting thing. I got lice in jail and was quarantined with another girl who also had lice. Needless to say, their treatment did not work, and the lice festered to an unimaginable point. We picked lice out of each other's hair every day and tried drowning them in a cup of water. They don't disappear. Also, people treat you like the grossest thing to walk the planet when you have lice in jail. The correction system actually worked for me. I straightened out and haven't been in trouble since then. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy. What was life like with criminal parents? Story 3 was rough. See you in that video.